Hey, and we are live. We're back on the air. I know it's been a couple of months. We had some things going on, but we are back and under a new title. We're now the Sports Insiders. We're because we're going to touch on not only the business aspect but other aspects as well. I'm Denzel Snipes. That's Sean Russi, the MLB and NFL sports agent. And as I put the banner up right here as a reminder, follow Sideline Sports on all of our social media channels at Sideline Sports One. We're on X. We're on TikTok. Our guy Jacob Christner is always putting great material on for TikTok. Of course, we're on Facebook as well and YouTube. That's the channel that you're watching us on right now. So on YouTube, hit the like and subscribe button for all updates, new episodes, new material. We've got other shows on the network, the Sideline Sports Show. Also, the Gauntlet as well. Our guys at First and 56. Terrible Talk, Hawk Talk. It's amazing, and we also have footage from live coverage as well from the past. So from this past Super Bowl week, and also from years past as well. NFL draft, the NFL scouting combine. Go through our history and look at all of our old material, and of course tune into our new material. So once again, that is the Sideline Sports Network. So we're gonna go ahead and get started here. First of all, Sean, how you doing, man?
Well, everything's going good. Like I said, it's been a little bit, but it's good to be back.
Jeff, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, as you all see in the headline, Brock Purdy signed a new deal, a 5-year, $265 million extension, 181 million in guarantees. As I bring up some of the notes here, so basically, after the Brandon Ayuk disaster in 2024, they brought back Purdy. Of course, they want to bring back Purdy, Warner, and Kittle to extensions within 3 weeks of each other. Now, Sean, what does this contract say about the 49ers' belief in Purdy? Now, keep in mind that before this contract, he'd taken them to two NFC title games, won the NFC in one of them, and came within, in my opinion, they were in overtime. He had Juwan Jennings for the game-winning score. The Chiefs blitz just got him in time. He very nearly won them a ring. So what does this mean for Brock Purdy and the 49ers?
No, like you said, he's gotten them really close, and he tried to play on one arm against the Eagles, and that's been highly debated whether they would have won that game if he was healthy because of how the defense came out and held the Eagles in check for the whole first half, really until Josh Johnson just kind of imploded.
Yeah.
And we had talked on several episodes that it was almost a sure thing he was going to exceed Dak's 60 million.
Right.
The fact that we're almost 10 million under where Dak's contract is, you're in the same line as Goff, who is an older quarterback, so that's almost an outlier for someone getting 50 million. Detroit doesn't really have any rookies developing right now, so they kind of had to give him that contract. And you're also lower than an injury-plagued Tua.
Right.
Now, Tua has legs that Purdy doesn't have, but he also has, a lot of concussions that Purdy doesn't have.
Right.
So it's an interesting contract to say the least. And there was a lot of things that went on, in the media with this one, just kind of like Ayuk. It looked like it may have started to get dirty. There had been rumors that the agent, who's not really well known, was basically out to make his name on the contract. Now, did that harm? Was that where Purdy lost the 7 million? No, it's not for anybody to say, but it can definitely be speculated since that made it out to the circles that hey, the agent's kind of playing a harder ball than Brock himself. Brock shows up at voluntary workouts while all this is going on. So you have a feeling that maybe Purdy is saying, hey, just get this done. Stop doing this thing. I'm not going to do the whole Ayuk saga. And then a couple of weeks later, you get him at this quote unquote discounted rate. Now, the interesting is that they're basically stuck with him for 2 years. After that, the dead money is not enough for them to say, hey, we have to keep this guy. So after 2 years, we could actually, maybe it's a Mahomes type deal. We look at a new extension every 2 years for Brock Purdy now. But the fact that he walked away with less also says, hey, last year wasn't so great. And guess what? The team around you this year, not that it's not great, but it's a lot younger than it's been. Can you do it with guys that are not proven? You've got Jennings, you've got Kittle, you've got question marks on McCaffrey. But
Uh-huh.
and you've got Trent Williams, but he has not played a full season in about 5 years. He's averaging 13 games a year, so he won't be there the whole season. Can you do it with this quote unquote Rams type rebuild where you're kind of flirting with the wild card, but you're not in a full rebuild, but you're expecting your quarterback to bail you out in certain games?
Right.
And I,
And
I think that's where the discount came in, where them saying, look, last year when things got hurt and you're supposed to be the guy, our results were 6-11, and you still had Jordan Mason running for 1,100 yards. You had Jennings over 1,000 yards, despite all the injuries. Now the defense wasn't the same, but that shouldn't mean that Purdy's only going out putting up 17 points.
yeah, yeah, very, very true. And then also consider the fact that, in my honest opinion, I think the NFC West actually got weaker this year. Seattle is in a rebuild. Uh, no one knows what's going to happen with Arizona. Pretty much your only competition in it. Now I know divisional games can be tough, but just from the outset, the only one team you really got to worry about is the Rams.
Yeah, the Rams obviously were hot at the end of last year. Those rookies now have a full year experience, and that defense really came together. And now you're looking at all second and third year guys on that Rams defense who have really locked in together, become a cohesive unit. It's
Hmm.
going to, I think, like you said, it's the 49ers or the Rams. Arizona's kind of, I don't want to say a mess, but their defense is under a deep rebuild. You really don't know what you've got in Harrison right now based on last year. He was hot some games, he was really cold for weeks at a time. Was that Kyler and him just not being on the same page? Is that Trey McBride being that good and demanding that many targets? So what do you get out of Harrison this year? I feel like for that offense to evolve, you've got to find some sort of role for him, even if it's just him gunning down the field. You've got to, take the top off in order to open that offense up. They've got good running backs. I think, not like Purdy, but kind of like Tua, you just got that inconsistency with Kyler.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you know what? I did want to go back to one point that they were saying that there was rumors in the media that Purdy's agent was out to make a name for himself. And I'm gonna play the devil's advocate for a second. And I know that you are a sports agent yourself, so there's a whole lot that we don't see that you could, shine some light on. But I'm gonna play devil's advocate for a second, okay? What if he is trying to make a name for himself? Ever heard of a guy named Rich Paul? He's represented guys like LeBron James, Odell Beckham Jr., John Wall, Lonzo Ball, J.R. Smith, and Scotty Lewis. And he's got his own like agency. I would like to think that guy, and he's the most infamous sports agent in the game right now.
And
So
we'll talk about Ayuk and Rosenhaus in a second, but I think Rosenhaus, just like standing next to T.O., and we'll touch on that more in a second, but he was out to put his face in front of the camera and make a name for himself. It's not wrong, if
no,
that's how you want to handle your business and be the spotlight agent, that's fine. Um, and I'm not saying, I don't know how many agents are out there like me. When someone calls me, I tell them, you better quote per source. I don't want to see my name.
right.
But everybody feels differently about it. But like if you see something about my client out there, it says per source, it probably came from me, but you'll only know that if you've actually, me
If
personally,
you know
that,
you
that,
exactly,
that
yeah,
came from Sean. Because
yeah,
I tell them, like, if my name ends up in it, you just don't have to call me again, because there will be no more per source on my clients.
right, exactly. No,
But
I
and
totally understand.
I don't think it's wrong of him. I think it's wrong of him and I don't know. The 49ers could have leaked it as a as a tact, right? Because I'm doubtful that someone in Purdy's circle leaked it, because if you have a good relationship with the agent, you're kind of going to let him do what he wants to do anyways, as long as it's not affecting you.
Detrimental to you, yeah.
Now we'll see this year, and if he fires the agent will still get paid on this deal. But we'll see this year if he moves to a different agency and claims it's for marketing or something. Then this actually took place,
Okay.
and Purdy was cost money. If he stays with this agent, then I would say then maybe this guy's just operating a little differently. He wants to fill Drew Rosenhaus's shoes, Lee Steinberg's shoes, um, and that's fine. There's also there's 200 of us out here that do it differently, and that's fine too. Um, I think with when you've got thousands of NFL players, if you've got someone like Purdy and you've got that chance, maybe that's what you want to do for yourself. For
Yeah.
me, and I think a lot of other guys, if Purdy's on my roster, it's just it's my selling point I don't need to be seen. I don't need to be known. You can find it on NFL.com if you needed to,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just for me to go to a college. Hey, I represent Brock Purdy. You could be the next, maybe you're the next one. And he think, okay, what you're looking at in a quarterback. So that would be my angle as Purdy's agent. But everybody, like you said, Rich Paul, he's done nothing wrong. He's built an empire doing it that
Yes.
way.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just a little louder than the rest of us. There's
Which
nothing
is
wrong with it. Like I said, the only thing is wrong with it is if it did actually play into this 60 to 53 difference, because for a year and a half, it was pegged in the media by us, even in the agent circles that I talk to. Oh, Purdy's getting 60, 65. There's no way he's not walking away with
yeah.
60 to 65, especially after Dak got 60. It was like, oh, there's no way.
There's no
There's no
way
way.
exactly. And
And
I
now he
know that
walks away with
owners.
53, and you're not even the top three quarterback salaries. You're number five.
Yeah, true. I mean, it was only right that Brock Purdy I had this debate. Shout out to John Shear and JB Ellis because I remember 2 years ago I had a small debate with him, and I told him I said whether you agree with it or not, Brock Purdy's going to get his money. I think it was as a matter of fact we were watching the NFC Championship game and the Niners just closed it out, and I said Brock Purdy just got his money. Oh, he doesn't deserve it. I said, listen, I'm not telling you what's right or wrong. But we know how the game goes, whether it's the right decision or the wrong decision, and you know that quarterbacks are the highest paid. Brock Purdy's gonna get his money. Now you alluded to Dak Prescott because it's like, oh come on now, Dak hadn't made it past the second round. Now you got a dude in within his rookie contract. He done took you to two NFC championship games, one Super Bowl, almost won it. Now, regardless of how much you think whether it's right or wrong or whatever, I would like to think, and I know, not John Lynch. I know the 49ers front office and Dallas' front office are two different, entities,
Mm,
right? Jerry Jones is going to be Jerry Jones. Okay, cool. But even just off of that alone, like if you came across just the general football fan that doesn't know what we know, okay, any one of them would tell you, well, Purdy should get more money because he took his team further.
right, right.
Whether you agree with it or not, that is just how it. That's not even really analytics, really. You know what I'm saying? It's like
Yeah.
he brought forth the most results. It's like with the common job out here. The guy who brings in the most results typically gets promoted.
No, it's no different than we saw. Jefferson sign one and Chase outdid him by $1. We kind of expected that here. Dak signs it. Purdy outdoes him by $1. Becomes the new highest paid quarterback. But that's not how it worked out. And maybe Purdy comes out and says something later. Everybody will speculate until then. But it is definitely interesting to see that he fell short, and interesting to see that they built in that 2 year out, basically when McCaffrey becomes a free agent. So you
Mm-hmm.
could be looking at a full blow up at that point if they go, hey, we gave this guy 2 years, even though McCaffrey was beat up these last 2 years of his deal. We can't do this no more. He obviously can't carry this team. But for
Yeah.
me, and in terms of saying, like you said, he's earned the money. It's Russell Wilson in Seattle, right? He played on that rookie deal, brought him two NFC titles. I think they went 1-1 in Super Bowls.
Yep.
They had, regardless whether you think he was too short, he was not going to last 10 years, whatever the case may be, that the argument he deserved the payday at that point.
Yeah. The crazy part about that, even that, is, and Russell Wilson was a very good quarterback. People were having him at top 10, top 5 at one point. You know what I mean? Even throughout his rookie contract, because you said it, two NFC championships, one Super Bowl win. You know, people will tell you that 2013 team, it was the Legion of Boom that got them that title.
Yeah.
But no one exactly said Russell didn't deserve that money.
No, and even though they played close games, it was kind of like watching the 2000 Bucks. Every time they needed a touchdown or a throw late, Wilson was doing it. They may have kept the Legion of Boom kept you on the scoreboard and close, but Wilson finished it for you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so with that being said, finishing up with Brock Purdy here. The earliest I read 2030, but it says here the earliest they could trade him or cut him is June 1st of 2029. So he's gonna be in San Francisco definitely for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, for sure. And that like I said, it's kind of them just tying him up to the rest of the contracts they've done, and they quickly went out and gave Kittle a 3-year extension. I believe Warner's was also 3 years. They did that all within a couple weeks, and everybody sat here and over exaggerated. Oh well, the Niners aren't signing; they're free agents. They're letting Hufunga walk. They're letting Greenlaw walk. They're letting all these guys walk. But you just traded for Bryce Huff. You're being mentioned as a landing spot for Tyreek Hill. They actually have about 50 million in cap space. They didn't change Bryce Huff's deal that he got from the Eagles. So they
Hmm.
have the money. I wouldn't be surprised if you see them not only trade for Hill, but they could go sign Justin Simmons and still have 20 million in cap space to play with this year.
They could.
So what they've basically done is what the Rams did is say, hey, we're just going to cut the fat. We're going to stop overpaying the guys who are getting paid on stuff they did 3 years ago and not what they've done for us recently.
Recently,
Like
right?
Aaron Banks is a great example. I think he got 60 million from the Packers, but he was the third worst rated guard on pass protection last year. How
Hmm.
do you justify that in a passing league at this point? Now I know we're shifting a little bit, and Barkley and Henry are causing a little bit of a shift back to the run, but how do you justify the third worst passing guard getting $60 million? No, the Niners just decided enough is enough. We're not going to pay all these guys that are starting to age and starting not to perform well. No different than them trading Debo. He led the league. I believe he was second or third in the league in drops last year and led them the league the year before. Again, how do you justify? Yeah, he's Debo. He was 3 years ago, but now he's leading the league in drops. So
Yeah,
you could
you
throw him
can't.
the ball, but he's not going to catch it.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, going back to that offensive lineman you said, we can go back to a full on 1940s, like all run NFL, right? If you're bottom five at your position, no, you don't deserve that kind of money.
No,
Period.
100%. And he
Yeah,
got paid
if
on
you're
what
bottom
what
five
he
at your
did.
position,
He's a Super Bowl guard. He made the Pro Bowl the year before. He's a former first round pick. Like these, unfortunately, that's sometimes what the market pays you on, and it's not what you did for me recently. It's the name you built over the time you've been in the league. And Aaron Banks, made that name for himself. But last year, he wasn't a $60 million guard. Not nowhere close.
yeah. No, absolutely, absolutely. Well, we're gonna switch gears here for our second topic here, and that is upcoming in 2 days here, WWE Money in the Bank 2025, and the projected. Well, I said projected revenue, but we're just gonna talk about the pay per view here. We'll probably get to the actual revenue on the next show, but okay. So John Cena and Logan Paul, does it even make sense? I thought about this right before I came on the air because I actually saw a tweet from Rikishi, from Jey Uso's father, saying that they were booking his son wrong. There should be no reason why he's in a tag team match at Money in the Bank. And you think about it, okay, he could be defending the championship and everything. You know what I'm saying? I think that this match with Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso versus Logan Paul and John Cena, the match is more about Cody Rhodes' return to action than anything else.
100%. And I think and we'll touch on the backstage stuff here shortly. But like, where has Travis Scott and The Rock gone here? We've
Yeah.
we've just disappeared. Like now we've replaced them with another celebrity, which I guess is you take one celebrity out, put another celebrity in. I guess that's how they're making sense of this. But I and to do the whole ruin wrestling thing before Paul's match with Uso, but to throw him in there, I would have rather seen you even let Seth be his partner, since Seth is clearly the next one that's going to be after Uso's title here when we're done with this little tag team match.
Yeah.
I think this is just a way, they're just, slow burn till SummerSlam. Like we don't want to change titles in June when we just changed them at Mania. Especially for Jay, I think they're going let him have his 6 months and then or 4 months, whatever it's been for Mania. And we'll switch it at SummerSlam. So I think it's a delay for him. But you saw the tease. What was it? 2 weeks ago, Heyman came out and ran down Jay and Roman, and it's like, so you've teased Seth and Jay now for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We know where it's going. So why isn't he in some sort of sense, involved with Seth at the pay per view versus being involved with Cena? I know they usually do a champion at Survivor Series, but that's Thanksgiving.
Hmm.
I don't know if you're looking at Jey Uso being the champion at Thanksgiving to even throw Cena in with him. It just doesn't seem, to make sense other than, hey, like you said, we need to make sure Cody's on the pay-per-view. Cody's going to get his one-on-one with Cena, but not yet. We're going to let him have the tag match first.
Yeah, they actually went away from the champion versus champion thing for the last few years. They've been concentrating more on like the war games, in which who knows how that's so far out. Who knows how that's going to play out? But as far as Logan Paul's involvement in the matchup, I'm not mad at it because I do believe he will be a main eventer one day. You know, I think the Maverick is not saying he's finding his footing as a heel. I think he's there. He just has some ways to go if he wants to be a top heel, if he wants to be a Gunther,
Mm,
a Roman Reigns or something like that. You typically with those guys, they have to get vicious. Right now, Logan Paul just kind of comes off as an asshole, And is it enough to, get the crowd to hate you? Sure. You know what I mean? But 2003 Triple H, prime Triple H had that sledgehammer at all times. That is how you got to get vicious. Drew McIntyre did it. Gunther's
like,
done it. You have
it,
to do things
it's
out
like
of
Cena
bounds.
now with the low shot and the belts. It reminds me of Hogan. Almost every match he hit someone with the belt.
Yeah. Now, with that being said, those are two people right there that they didn't have to get outright vicious. It was shock factor because they had been baby faces for so long. And people thought we were going to see Cena retire without ever going bad guy again. And then he does it.
Yep.
And somehow well, not saying somehow, I mean, he's seen it. He always thinks of a way. He literally has lit up the crowd. And the crazy part about it is he still has half the crowd cheering for him. It's awesome. You know, uh, guys like John Cena who have been in for 2 decades, they just kind of find a way to do it. It's the same thing with Orton. It's the same thing with Triple H. It's the same thing with anybody else that's been that is like the guy in the locker room. You figure there's like a top four at all times, right? You know,
Yep.
someone who's been there at least 15 years and has been on both sides of the fence.
No, I mean, even look at Roman and Seth. Even though they've made them bad guys at times, the crowd has never really turned that way on them. They still sing the songs and chant the
Exactly.
names. It's not really mattered as long as you're putting in the work.
Exactly. And Seth has kind of earned that, like literally in the same segment. And it's going to happen this Sunday. It's going to happen Monday and any Thursday afterwards. They're going to sing his song. He's going to get in the ring. He hasn't really resorted to really burning the crowd just yet.
Yep.
Um, like Roman, even then, when Roman had his run, he wasn't really known for kind of burning the crowd. You know what I mean? Like when I think of burning the crowd, I think of like Triple H,
Yeah.
and who I personally think was like the greatest, if not a top five at burning the crowd at all time, Scott Steiner. When he was Big Papa Pump in WCW, no one could smoke a crowd like him.
Yeah.
I
No,
put him up against anybody.
and
I,
that's why
I put
Cena's
him up
doing it
against
now.
anybody.
Because like
Mhm.
you said, Cena doesn't have the sledgehammer, but he's using the belt. He's going after kids in the crowd on the mic. That's how he's getting it.
Yeah, that's how he's getting it in. Absolutely. And then let's see here.
And just
Um,
before you do this, it's they're privately owned now. They were publicly owned, but just before that note gets read.
Gotcha. Okay, then. So, all right, consequences. So disbanding storylines. Yeah, because they're owned now by TKO Holdings, and they had been for the last couple of years. Disbanding storylines, throwing together ones that seem for views. Travis Scott backstage power struggle between Rock and Triple H. I'd heard about some things concerning that with the Rock and Triple H. I haven't. I mean, um, I hadn't really seen anything too terrible. I think it's mostly noise, in my opinion, but I'm not ruling it out. I'm not ruling it out at all. I see two men that have great respect for each other, but considering that one of those guys is the biggest actor in the world, not named Will Smith,
Mm,
you know,
100%.
and and who has a ton more money than him also, but than
No, and The
Triple H
Rock
also.
has stock in the company, spot on the board. And even if it's just for story, they're doing a great job of making sure it's blurred, right?
Right, they are.
I don't think you're ever going to see these two step back in the ring. Like after what happened with Michaels and HHH versus Brothers of Destruction, I really hope they don't ever step back in the ring with how they looked. Even The Rock looks slow versus Cody. Like, if they want to be managers, like pick a guy, and this is H's guy versus Rock's guy. I think that would be great. But they're doing a great job at least blurring it and making people talk, which is really what like you said. I think that's what the point of it is, right? They're just trying to make sure people continue to talk, especially now when we know TV kind of slows down here till August for them.
Yeah, it does. One quick thing, and that was the recent our truth no longer being with the company. Here's the thing, because I've been seeing a lot of terminology saying he was fired, he was released. And according to our truth himself, he wasn't really fired or released. His contract just expired. They opted not to bring him back.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. I think kind of like you've seen other guys transfer into whether it's announcing or something else. I think Vince would have put him somewhere or let him can continue to kind of be the stand-in comedy act that he's been for 2 decades. And I think again it just shows like TKO is not even looking at the fact that the shirt he wore Saturday is the number one seller on the site the minute you released him.
Yeah,
You've made a collectible out of this shirt, but
you
you
have.
released the guy behind it. It's similar to Braun Strowman, right? They're saying they released him because he can barely walk, but now they're putting him in the WWE movie. So we're just
Hmm.
releasing these guys from wrestling, and you have this production company now.
Yeah,
Um, you know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, no, we're just moving you off of the WWE stuff, but we're keeping you around. But yeah, you're released from wrestling. Your contract for wrestling is not renewed.
gotcha. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And the crazy part is that they actually announced that they were bringing back Braun Strowman on like a part-time basis. I think it was because of his pay, because he was kind of getting up there as one of the highest paid in the company. But he's injured often, so they're going to bring him back on a part-time basis. So did they really get rid of him? No, I think they're restructuring some things back there. But before we close out, just wanted to get your predictions for Money in the Bank.
So I wrote the notes before Monday, so I have a little change to this. I think Roman is actually going to take out Mr. El Grande before the match and enter himself into the
Ooh,
match because
wow,
I
interesting.
don't think it makes any sense for El Grande to be in the match. It makes it too obvious for me that if that's your lineup, Seth is winning that match.
Yeah,
Like, there's not one person out of that other five that I'm going, who's the threat?
right.
Other than that, maybe Punk does that versus he takes out El Grande, but I think in some fashion Reigns gets involved. Maybe he doesn't even cost Seth. Maybe beats him up enough, and then the two Brawns still get him up the freaking ladder. But the point has been made, like, hey, this is not over.
Yeah. And then for your women's Money in the Bank, who is your projected winner?
I think Alexa's gonna win. I think
Alexa
she's
Bliss.
yeah, I think she's been gone a long time. I think it's a fresh change in terms of what we've been seeing. I know there's some argument for the new NXT woman to win, but I think Alexa's gonna win, and we may ever see her feud with Charlotte one more time. That seems to be what they're pushing on SmackDown.
Okay. I've got my projected women's winner is Naomi. I think that they have to set up somewhere down the line a rematch between her and Cargill, or a match between her and Belair.
Yeah,
Uh,
they have a lot of unanswered questions with those three.
They do, and that's one thing I didn't like, is they totally just kind of. But then again, Belair's taking a break right now, you know. So I kind of understand it, but also at the same time, and Cargill's, she's been having matches and kind of building herself up to being world title status. It just makes the most sense. Now I wouldn't be surprised if Roxanne Perez took it, but it makes the most sense to me for Naomi to win it, if only to set up a title match between her and a returning Belair, perhaps at Survivor Series.
And so, real quick on that note, how quickly do you think we see these cash-ins?
Don't expect the men's. Then again, it all depends on the match card lineup. If the obviously, if the tag match is before men's Money in the Bank, then don't expect it. I don't expect anyone trying to cash in on Jay Uso that night, because they booked him versus Gunther. They built it up for weeks. I mean, I
Yep,
get the unpredictability. You know what I mean?
yep.
Um, In which, you know what? On that note, I'm not surprised if Triple H, did make a change and have Uso lose the title Saturday night due to a cash in, and then have them go against Gunther. I don't think anyone's going to cash in on Cena. I've got my own long projected Cena stuff. That'll be for another day. My projected men's winner is Seth Rollins.
Yeah.
It makes the most sense out of everybody in that match. It has to be Seth. It has to be Seth because with this new group that he formed together of powerhouses, he needs a world championship to solidify. Think about it like this: the Judgment Day, right?
Yep.
When Damian Priest won the world title, that solidified the group
Yep.
as the baddest in the business. And so this is why Seth Rollins must win. He has to win at Money in the Bank. He has to be he's going to be a multi-time winner and everything.
Hmm.
Um he needs that world championship to solidify. And not only that, but he needs that belt to have a heel run. He's been a heel world champion before, why not bring it back? It has to be Rollins.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. They can't go, I mean, I guess they could swerve us, but I really don't see them doing that on this one. It makes too much sense for them to go that direction. I hope they don't go as quick as Monday, but I could see them letting like Gunther beat up Jay after the match, and then here comes Seth, and the rematch is SummerSlam
No.
with Seth as champion instead of Jay being
Yeah.
the defending champ at SummerSlam. I
That
hope they
would
don't
make
do it that quick, but they seem to have already teased it, the night after where they're like, hey, give us our title match, and that got schmoozed over by Punk and Zayn and all that stuff. But
mhm.
it's like, I don't know how much longer they could hold on to pulling the trigger when you kind of see like, you're building towards Punk Rollins and eventually, Reigns has to get a victory at Rollins at some point. It's kind of like Austin and Rock back in the day. Rock had to get a victory at some point.
Yeah.
So
At
you know
some
that's
point,
coming
yeah.
too.
At some point, and you know what? Because I thought that he was gonna lose the belt to Rollins at SummerSlam. It very well may be a cash in on Monday night after the match with Gunther.
Yeah, especially like we talked about, it's a slow time for TV. That pops them again for a couple more weeks and kind of breezes you into August where you get the SummerSlam.
But this also is great because you look at how many contenders you got for the world title right now. You got Rollins, you got Zayn, you got Punk, you could have Reigns, Gunther, and I'd always said that a title is as prestigious as how many people are chasing it.
Yep. No, it's a
You look
lot
during
better
the
when you
Attitude Era, you had six heads going for the belt at least at all times.
and it nothing against Roman's run, but they were just picking one at a time. Like here's who's next. Here's who's next. It wasn't like there was a constant title
Yeah,
picture, like you're
Roman
saying.
wasn't in too many fatal four ways.
Yeah, exactly. And this, like you said, leading where we're going with this, we're gonna have a whole lot of that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, it is NBA Finals time,
Yep.
and we're gonna go ahead and get out of you guys' hair now. But thank you all for tuning in. The return of the sports insiders, and myself, Sean Russi. We'll be back next week. I think we should go. Touch on the revenue for Money in the Bank and other happenings around sports. So we will see you guys later. Thanks for tuning in.